you? That's road?
No.
What book is that right there?
The same.
Let me see.
It's the one you told me 2 years ago.
MashaAllah, you grabbed it.
Mean,
Alhamdulillah. I couldn't even find one. I was looking for one. Where you find that at?
I got this in the state. Oh, Seafed the Southwest.
Where's that? Is that a bookstore?
Yes. Seafed the Southwest. It's online. They got everything.
I need to order one, inshallah.
You seen this one?
What is that?
I heard a whole lot about that's a female scholar, Shikana. Camilla Calvin.
Kawadi. Modified.
We got a lot of women in my neighborhood. She got a explanation for Ramadan.
Jay, Mumtaz. I'll look at it, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-anbiya wa mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammadan wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. Today inshallah ta'ala this is our 22nd class in Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni, and we're in the book of Salat, the book of the prayer. The last class we had in this, we spoke about some of the conditions of the Salat. Specifically, we spoke about the times of the different salawat from Fajr to Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to talk about another very important aspect of the prayer, and it is covering your odor. What is the odor? Does anyone know what that is? I'm sorry? The belly button? Okay, anybody else?
The odor is from the navel to the knees.
The navel to the knees. What is odor? What is it? What is the definition of odor? Private parts? Anyone else? One second. We in the same book I'm in?
No.
It's on page 58. لا 85. Hey. I'm sorry, go ahead. Ahsan, the parts of the body that should be covered for prayer. The parts of the body that should be covered for prayer. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to read from some of the text. The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, wa minha. When he starts off by saying wa minha, are you there? You found it? 85 at the top. The second line, it says, wa minha satrul awrah. Let me show you. It says, وَمِنْهَا سَتْرُ الْأَوْرَةِ. From the conditions it says, وَمِنْهَا سَتْرُ الْأَوْرَةِ. Right? From it is covering your awrah. فَيَجِبُ بِمَا لَا يَصِفُ بَشَرَتَهَا. All right. So the scholars of Islam, when they mention covering the body for prayer, right? So the first thing that they're mentioning here, this is for men and women, and then they're going to specify for women, and then they're going to further clarify for men. It says, وَلَا يَصِفُ بَشَرَتَهَا. If a person is about to pray, we should not be able to see their body color through their clothing. Does that make sense? So what does that mean? Not from the neck. Yes. You don't see no flesh, or you don't see any flesh from the parts that need to be covered. So, for example, If your odor is from the navel to the belly button, I'm sorry, from the navel to the knee, then you should not be able to see anything in between there. Does that make sense? Did I lose you? All right. So if we say that the odor for the man is from the navel to the knee, that means we shouldn't see your thigh. We shouldn't see your upper thigh, for example. We shouldn't see anything in between there. All right. So meaning even if you have clothes on, but they're see-through, you shouldn't be able to see through them. Right? But what about if you have tight clothes? Is your salah accepted? Who said no? You say no? Anybody else?
I think it depends on what's considered tight.
Tight is tight.
Yeah, I would take Sheikh Al-Albani's position.
What's Sheikh Al-Albani's position?
It's not. If the
You first of all, are you sure that's Sheikh Al-Albani's position? If you're gonna put it on Sheikh Al-Albani, be sure.
No, because Sheikh Al-Albani explained about clothing being tight.
What did he say?
Excuse me, but he was talking about the Western trousers and stuff. That's what he was more so.
Tight. So even if he said Western trousers, question now is, if it's tight, does that invalidate your salat? Now, if you say, pay attention, if you say it does, then you have to bring what? Dalil. So my question was, again, you put it on Sheikh Al-Albani. You sure you want to do that?
No, because the Sheikh didn't say it invalidates your salat.
All right.
But he said if the artery and more so with the trousers, he was speaking specifically with the man. He said when it rise up the crack and
so even so if it rises, if the pants are tight, we're not talking about if your pants are hanging off your behind. We're talking about if they're tight and you have a belt around your waist and they're tight. Does that invalidate your salat? Mumtaz. And then the answer is no, it does not invalidate your salat. Should you wear it? That's a whole nother issue. We're talking about your salat being accepted or not. Does it fall into this category? So somebody would say, where did you get that from, right? So we're going to read from, well, I don't even know what page it was on. There's a book called Sharh al-Kabir. And the issue was about pants being see-through. If your clothing is see-through, then obviously this will nullify your salat according to a majority of the ulama as it relates to that issue. However, if the clothing is tight, they say ajza'at. Yani the salat is acceptable, but that's not recommended to wear tight clothing where a person can see your body parts because your clothing is tight. Tight. Ajza'at, like yujzi. Right. Tight. So they say la yakun shaffaf, like your clothing should not be see-through. Right? And then it says awratul rajul min surratin min as-surra ila raqba. The other part there I skipped that because it's not relevant if you're following. All right. It says awratul rajulin min as-surra ila raqba. So the awra for a man is from the navel to the knee, from the navel to the knee. Right. What does that mean? From your navel to your knee should be covered. Is that what that means? What does that mean, guys?
Everything that's in between the navel and the knee.
So is the navel and the knee a part of it, or is it not a part of it? It's a part of it. Does anyone agree with that statement, or is it? Do you agree? Anyone else? Right. Since you're following along in the book, go look down the bottom and see what it says.
footnote.
Yeah, footnote. What does it say?
1 and 2.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what yours say.
No, I'm saying what you was using. The footnote go to 1 and 2.
I don't, maybe my footnotes, mine might be a little different. That says, when we're talking about surra, when it says surra ila rukba, from the belly button to the knee, right?
You talking about Fasura Mahra right there? You want to say that?
No.
Not that?
No. It says, walaysa min al-awra. The navel and the knee laysa min al-odor, meaning both of them are not part of the odor. The knee itself and the navel they're not part of the odor. This meaning it's not included in it. Is that clear? It's the first time you ever heard that?
First time I heard that.
Yeah. So then, odor tarrajul min surra ila rukba wa laysa min al-odor, meaning the navel and the knee, they're both not considered parts of the odor. Go ahead and ask your question. No. Right. All right. So then, if they're not from the odor, what does that mean? Can a person just pray with their knee? I mean, from the, let's say they have on an izar, right? The izar is underneath their navel and it's right above their knee. Can they pray like that? With no shirt on top? According to, listen, if they say, according to the fuqaha, they say that the odor is for the man. We're not talking about women, right? For the man, is from the navel to the knee. If we say that this is the case, then what about if you have on an izar, right? And it's below your navel and it goes down to your knee. Can you pray like that without a shirt on?
According to that, yes.
You can. Anyone else?
According to that statement.
No.
You can.
No.
Anyone else? Right. You can. If it's a sunnah prayer. If it's wajib, if it's a fard prayer, an obligatory prayer, you have to have at least one shoulder covered. At least one shoulder covered. And we're going to cover that inshallah. So the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَعُودَةَ الرَّجُلِ مِنَ السُّرَّ إِلَى رُكْبَةٍ, from the navel to the knee. وَكُلُّ حُرَّةٍ عَوْرَةٍ. Now they're going to talk about the women. Kullu hurratin awra. Here they're talking about a woman. Every part of her is awra except for wajhaha wa, and some of the ulama say wa kaffayha. That's in the nut. That's not in there. You're not going to find that there. You can add that. Illa wajhaha wa kaffayha, meaning her face and her hands are not considered awra for the salah. Her face and her hands are not considered awra. Right. وَتُسْتَحَبْ صَلَاتُهُ فِي ثَوْبَيْنِ. Now they're going to talk about the recommendation of praying. Not what is obligatory, but what is recommended for a man to pray, right? It says, for a man to pray, it is recommended that he has on minimum of two garments. An upper garment and a lower garment. Right now they're being minimalistic, if you will, right? What's the least amount of things you need to pray? Huh? No, go ahead. They're saying recommended. At least. Like, for example, you're not going to just put on a thobe and not have on any undergarments. Right? Right? Or no?
Yeah.
Listen. What's recommended is that you put on a minimum of 2 pieces of garment. Right? So it says, "Tustahab salatuhu fi thawbayn." It's recommended that he puts on 2 garments to pray. وَيَكْفِي سَتْرَ عَوْرَتِهِ فِي النَّفْلِ مَعَ أَحْدَ عَاتِقَيْهِ أو عَاتِقَيْهِ فِي الْفَرْضِ. He said it is recommended if you're praying to have these 2 garments, but if you're praying an obligatory prayer, you at least have to have one shoulder covered. As for a woman, وَصَلَاتُهَا فِي الدِّرْعِ. A woman should have at least a long shirt on, wa khimar, and a khimar, to have her head wrapped, that wraps around. It says, وَيُجْزِئُ سَتْرُ أَوْرَتَهَا. And if she had one piece that covered all of her awra, then this also will be sufficient. Now, here's the issue that causes some concern, right? The issue is, وَمَنْ انْكَشَفَ بَعْضُ أَوْرَتِهِ وَفَحُشَ. Now we're going to talk about the things that's haram when it comes to the awra, right? It says, وَمَنْ انْكَشَفَ. Inkashafa means if it becomes exposed. So let's say you're praying in ruku', right? And you bend over and piece of your behind comes out. Piece of your backside comes out and you're going over in ruku'. It says, وَمَنْ انْكَشَفَ بَعْضُ عَوْرَتِهِ فَحُشَ. Meaning, if you go into ruku' and a part of your undergarments, meaning your skin, is shown when you go into ruku', depending on two things will determine whether or not that will break or invalidate your salah. Two things the ulama consider: az-zaman wa kumma, meaning the time and the amount that is exposed. The time and the amount that is exposed. So, for example, if a person, now, the question now is, when we talk about time, are you following along? When we talk about time, are we talking 1 minute, 30 seconds, 2.5 minutes? Like, what's the time? Is there a specific time? And if so, what is it? Right? Right. In a case like this, anytime the ulama, and they mention anything have to do with time and distance, and there's no approximate number associated with it, then it goes back to the principle in Islam where we say that al-'ada muhakkama. Al-'ada muhakkama. This is from the some qawaid kubra, the major principles in Islam. Al-'ada muhakkama. This means that the customary practice of a people takes precedence here. So whatever we as a group of people would consider to be long in terms of time, then that's what it is. Does that make sense? When they say kumma, it means the amount that's exposed. What does it have to be? Like an inch of skin, like 3 inches of skin? Who determines that? That would be determination of the people of that area. Does that make sense? In general. So then if it is exposed for a long period of time and a severe portion without the person covering it back up, then this person may have to pray that salah over again. They may have to pray that salah over again. This is why it's very important that when a person is praying, that they do not have their skin exposed from the odor. Does that make sense? It's very important when you're praying, you do not have the skin area that should be covered is covered. The skin area that should be covered is covered. Yes. The knee, now, obviously you should have the knees covered, but if it's exposed, if it becomes, okay, now the issue about the knee is what? What do we say about the knee? Is the knee part of the odor? No, it's not part of the odor. It's not part of the odor. Okay? Now, there's a different odor for the salat, and then there's a different odor for outside of the salat. Right now, we're talking about the salat. But according to many of the fuqaha of Islam, that the odor is from the navel to the knee. And the navel is not included. So if your navel was exposed, it does not invalidate your odor, meaning your odor being exposed, and likewise the knee. Anyone who wants to verify that and don't believe that, you can look it up, inshallah. No, the reason why I'm saying that, because when I first studied that initially, I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. But you can find it, inshallah. Information is there. Right. So right now we're talking about the things that invalidate the salah. For the first thing that was mentioned was that if a body part that is the odor is exposed for a long period of time, this will what? Nullify the salah. Right? The second one, if a person prays in a haram thawb. What's a haram thawb? What type of thawb can be haram for a man? Excuse me. Stolen, yes. A tight thawb? I don't know if it's haram. It might not be recommended. But haram is, first of all, when we say haram, what does haram mean? What does that mean? Yeah, haram means that if you do that thing, you are deserving of Allah's punishment. Maybe Allah will punish you, or maybe He will not, but you deserve it. You earned it. You worked hard to get that reward. Wa'yadhu billah, right? If you do something haram, you earned Allah's punishment. Whether Allah will punish you or not, that's up to Allah's mercy, right? We left to the mercy of Allah. But you technically earned it, right? You earned the punishment of Allah. Whether or not Allah will punish you is a different conversation that we will not know, inshallah. Tayyib. So then, so then what is considered a haram thawb, right? That's for a man to wear silk. 100% silk for a man, yes. Colors are hated, but not haram. We're going to get to that too. All right. So let's say, for example, the thawb is 100% silk. This is haram for men to wear. 100% silk thawb. This is haram, right? So then this is a thawb that is muharram. You have to what? Pray again. Likewise, if you had on a thawb that was najis, maybe you have a thawb on that has urine on it. It has feces on it. It has a lot of blood on it. You can't pray in that thawb. It says, La man hubisa fi mahallin najisan. Let's say, for example, and you get to learn how Islam looks at issues on a vast level, right? If a person is incarcerated, he has one thawb, and the thawb is najis, and he can't change it because there's nothing else. He has no access. Does not have access to anything else. In this case, he does not have to pray over again. He does not have to pray over again because of his condition. Right now, we're about to go into a chapter or a portion of the Salat that a person may be in really rough situations. And so we're going to talk about how do you pray in those situations. The scholars of the past, they came up with scenarios that to us, we may think is not relevant. But you never know what type of situation you could be in. Hence, you have to pray in these situations, circumstances. So, for example, the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَمَنْ وَجَدَ كِفَايَةَ عَوْرَتِهِ سَتَرَهَا. If a person finds that which is sufficient to cover the... So, assuming right now we have a person that has no clothes. They have no clothes at all, and it's time for the salat. The fact that they're discussing this, it shows the importance of the salat again, right? As I listened to a lecture today, and a brother mentioned that get your salat right before you're prayed over, meaning learn your salat before you are prayed upon. Does that make sense? Learn your salat before you are prayed upon. What does that mean?
Learn the rulings of your salat, the shurut, the qawaid, the arkan, everything pertaining to your salat before you are the one being prayed over. Absolutely.
Learn how to pray before the time comes where brothers and sisters are praying over your body. That makes sense? When it comes to stuff like that, somebody might say, well, I don't really got time. I'm busy. I'm working. I don't got time to learn how to pray. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time. But the reality of it is we all make time for what we need. If you need to eat, are you going to say, no, I'm not going to eat today? If you need to use the bathroom, are you going to say, damn, I'm going to just hold off today? I'm cool. I'm going to hold off till tomorrow. In fact, if you got to go to the bathroom, what do? You're going to make it happen, right? That same energy that we put into other things that are necessary for us to do, we have to put that same energy, or if not more, into making sure we know how to pray. Does that make sense? The same way, the same energy. That's if we believe in Allah on the last day. That's if we really believe in Allah on the last day, then that's the type of importance it has to be. Anything less than that is a problem. Does that make sense? Anything less than putting all the energy in and making sure you know the minimum of how to pray, it's a problem. Some of us have been Muslim for some time and we don't take the importance to learn how to pray. All right, we're busy. Everything else is more important. I was hungry. I had to do this. I had to do that. I was doing this, I was doing that, and you did. And the thing is, how many days, how many chances do you think we're going to get? Every time a person dies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a glimpse of our reality, that we're mortal. Every time a person dies, Allah gives us a glimpse of our reality. It's a sign to let you know your time is coming. If a person understands that their time is coming and you don't know how to pray and you haven't focused on praying, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? And a lot of times we worry about the wrong stuff. But like I said, this is only important for the one who believes in Allah on the last day. If we really don't believe in the law on the last day, then it will be known on the day of judgment. You'll know. So then, it says, now when we listen to this, you're going to understand how important the Salat is. So he says, فَمَنْ وَجِدَ كِفَايَةَ عَوْرَتِهِ سَتَرَهَا. Whoever doesn't have any garments and they're naked, whatever they can find that's going to cover their odor, then they find and they pray in it. Does that make sense? Right. It says, وَإِلَّا فَفَرْجَيْنِ. Let's say, for example, all they found was 2 sheets of paper. It said if you're naked and you have nothing to cover your odor, and you have 2 sheets of paper, then you cover your private parts only and pray like that. And then he says, فَإِن لَمْ يَكْفِيهِمَا فَدُبُرْ. If you don't have 2 pieces of paper and you only have 1 piece, then cover your behind. And cover your backside, right? It says, وَإِنْ أُعِيرَ سُتْرَةَ لَزِمَهُ قَبُولُهَا. Now let's say, for example, we're of the type of people where we don't, you don't like taking stuff from people. No, I'm cool. All I have is this sheet of paper. I'm going to just pray like this. I'm cool. No, man, here, take this, bro. No, I ain't. In this case, if someone's giving you a garment to pray in, it says, لَزِمَهُ قَبُولُهَا, meaning it is incumbent that they take that garment to cover themselves so they can what? Pray. Right? And then it says, وَيُصَلِّي الْعَارِ قَائِدًا. Now let's say, for example, he doesn't even have a piece of paper. Does Islam show a person how to pray even if they're butt naked? Let's say you put in a hole, if you're incarcerated, you're in a hole and they took all your clothes. You have nothing. Islam talks about that too. This shows the importance of not leaving off the Salat. If Islam is going to show you how to pray, even if you're naked, what is that? Think about that. How important is the Salat then? So look, it says, وَيُصَلِّي عَارِ قَائِدًا بِالْإِمَةِ. If a person is naked and they have no garments, then they pray sitting down. They pray sitting down. Bil-ima. Ima is they use their head to make ruku and sujood, and they don't move too much. Right? And then it says, Bil-ima istihbaban fihima. It is recommended that they pray that way. Right? It says, Wa yakunu imamahu. Now let's say it's a congregation. It's men there and all the men butt naked. Wa yadhu billah. No, I hate to say it like that, Sheikh, but just so that the people understand how this is whoever's listening, not from here, this is the language we speak here. All right. So they don't have on any clothes, right? They're naked. The men are naked. Do they pray in Jama'ah or no? No, this is a serious question. Do the men, if they're naked, do they pray in Jama'ah or no? So it says they all pray sitting down and they pray in Jama'ah, except that the Imam of the Salat is all in the same line. There's no one standing in the front. That's Islam. If all of the men are naked and they have no garments at all, and the Salat is in and they have to pray, they all pray sitting down and the Imam is in the middle, not in front of them. He's in the middle in the same rank. طيب. وَيُصَلَّ كُلُّ نَوْعٍ وَحْدَهُ. Now let's assume now, hypothetical situation, all the men and women, they're all there. They're all Muslim. They took all their clothes. Maybe this may happen in China. The way they torture some of the Muslims, وَيَدْ بِاللَّهِ. Nasallahu salam wa afiyah, right? They take all the Muslims' clothes, the women and the men. They have no clothes. It's time for the Salat. Can they pray? Nah. How do they pray? They say, Kullu wahid, kullu nu'in bi wahdihi. Meaning, all of the men pray together by themselves, away from the women. They don't look at each other. And then the women, they do their thing by themselves. All right? It says, فَإِن شَقَّ صَلَّ الرِّجَالِ. Now, they say, if it's difficult to do that, فَإِن شَقَّ صَلَّ الرِّجَالِ وَاسْتَدْبَرَهُمَ النِّسَاءِ. The men pray, and the women turn their backs to the men. And likewise, if the women are praying, the men what? Are away from them, and they're not looking at them either. Does that make sense? طيب. فإن وجد السترة قريبة في أثناء الصلاة ستر وبنى. Let's say, for example, now, the brother is praying by himself, for example, naked, no clothes, and somebody's saying like, subhanAllah, and they throw something at him, like a thobe or izar. He should grab that izar, stand up, wrap himself, and continue praying. Don't stop. Don't break out of the salat. Continue praying. Wabana. Meaning, so let's say you already pray 1 rak'ah, 2 rak'ah. Then somebody slide him a thobe or a izar. Wrap yourself up and finish the other 2 rak'ah. For example, if he's praying Salat Odor or Asr or something like that. Does that make sense? طيب. If they can't, it's heavy, right? It says, وَإِلَّا. If they can't do that, meaning if he moves too much, ibtada'a, meaning he start the salat all over again. Meaning, if you move too much, you break out of the salat, then you just pray the salat again. But in some cases, the salat does allow for some movement. Does that make sense? But if you move too much, then you break out of the salat and you start the salat again. Question now, what's considered too much movement? I gave you guys the answer. What's considered too much movement? Whatever the customs of the people consider to be too much. Understand that. Anytime we get something general like that, then the gauge is always the customs. Yes.
I don't want to drift off topic, but it got something to do with the movement. It was a rest in the way the Prophet ﷺ opened the door while he was praying.
Yes.
Was that a specific salah, or that was just for the Prophet ﷺ?
That's anybody.
It's anybody. So was that true? I mean, like, how do I understand that movement? If he was close to the door, or if you, I don't know.
It's the movement. He moved and opened the door. Whatever they considered to be. Obviously, that movement wasn't considered to be too much.
Yeah,
right? Yes.
So
Some of the ulama, I'm sorry. Some of the ulama mentioned, because it just came back to me. Some of the ulama mentioned that if you move so much that a person would think you're not in the salat. That's the gauge. Malish. Yeah. If you move so much that a person would think you're not praying. Yes.
You gotta grab the kids or something like that.
Same thing. If you're moving too much so that a person would think that you're not praying. طيب. The next part, it talks about the things that are hated in the salat, right? So it says, yukra fi salat as-sadal. As-sadal here, and there are different things that was not customary practice. As-sadal here is like having garments that just hang over your body. So for example, if you have like clothing that's open and it's not closed or not wrapped over, this is called sadal, right? If a person covers their face in the salat, this is also not recommended. Wa kuffa kammihi. And if you have long thing, you feel like a long clothing and you roll it up because you don't want it to touch the ground or something like that, this is also something that's hated to do. Another thing is ashaddu waslihi kan zunnar. Zunnar is like with the the Catholic or the Christian priest may wear, something tight around their waist. It's something that's not really custom. We don't really see that, but these are some of the things that they're saying that is hated. The next issue, what's the ruling on having your pants below the ankle? What's the ruling on that? Does anyone know? Mumtaz. So now we're going to talk about this, right? An-Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, what? He said, Kullu man tahta ka'bayn fahuwa fi an-nar. Right? So, and this is very, very important. When in al-Islam, when the scholars of al-Islam, they mention issues like, let's say, Kullu man tahta ka'bayn fahuwa fi an-nar. Anything that is below the ankles is in the hellfire. This is a hadith and it's authentic, right? Question now is, can you give a ruling in Islam off of one hadith and it's talking about the same issue? Yes or no? No. There's another hadith. It says, "Man jurra thawbahu khuyala'in fahuwa fi an-nar kama qala alayhi salatu wassalam." Whoever drags their thobe on the ground out of arrogance, khuyala'in fahuwa fi an-nar. So then, the scholars of al-Islam, they take both of these hadith and they combine them together. You can't take one without the other, right? Some scholars say that the first hadith is mutlaq, meaning anything below the ankles is in the what? Hellfire. Then there's another hadith that comes yuqayyidu, meaning it restricts it. So the other hadith says what? Anyone who drags their thobe on the ground out of arrogance is in the fire. So then there's another hadith of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq when he said to the Prophet ﷺ, does this hadith include me because my thobe drags on the ground? And Nabi ﷺ said, no, because you're not doing it out of what? Arrogance. So then, having said that, the majority of the ulama al-Islam say that dragging your pants on the ground out of arrogance is what? Haram. However, if a person is dragging their garment on the ground, not out of arrogance, then it is makruh, hated, not haram. Right. So, yes.
The one about when the law called down to the earth, swallowed a man that was dragging it.
I don't know the hadith. But even if it was, even if I don't know that hadith, but let's assume that hadith is sahih. Now what?
That's what I wanted to know.
No, I'm asking you. But let's assume that it is. Okay. Let's assume that the hadith that the brother mentioned is authentic. All right? What was the hadith?
That the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told the man to lift his garment up, and he did so in front of him. But then when he got away from the Prophet,
he dropped it back down.
Right, he let it drag, and
okay.
It fall down to the earth to swallow him until the day.
So, did everybody hear this? What he just said? I don't know this hadith. It might be authentic, Allahu alam. But assume that this hadith is sahih. Does that go against anything else that we discovered? Does it agree with it? Yes. So then, when you have a hadith in al-Islam and you want to give a verdict, you have to compile all of them together and then give rulings and verdicts. Because of this is why you have some ulama, they say this hadith, this issue of below the ankles or not, is for everybody. Right? Meaning it's haram to have anything below the ankles. In this town in particular, we believe, meaning the people of this balad, this place, anything below the ankles is in the hellfire. Whether you're doing it out of arrogance or not. This is the belief of most of the people here, correct? Right. That's a position that some of the scholars hold. But the majority of the Salaf, meaning majority of the scholars of al-Islam, they hold that if it's done out of arrogance, it's haram. No difference of opinion on that. But if it's not done out of arrogance, then it's hated. So a person may say, how do you know if you're doing it out of arrogance or not? So someone may argue with that and say, how do you know if you're doing anything out of arrogance or not? That makes sense? So what I'm saying is that this issue, it has some kalam on it. So it says, and we're reading from Shad Al-Kabir, right? It says, وَيُقْرَأْ إِسْبَالُ شَيْءٍ مِنْ ثِيَابِهِ خُيَلَاءٍ. It says, It says, Isbalu shay min thiyabihi khuyala'in. It says, Yukra isbal al-qamis wal-izar mutlaqan. It is hated to wear or to drag your qamis, meaning the long garment or thobe, or an izar, mutlaqan, right? كذلك السراويل, and likewise pants. لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أمر برفع الإزار, because the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he commanded to raise the izar. And then he says, فَإِنْ فَعْلَهُ خُيَلَاءٍ فَهُوَ حَرَامٌ. If a person drags their garments out of arrogance, then it is haram. لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من جر ثوبه خيلاء لم ينظر الله إليه. Whoever drags their garments on the ground out of arrogance, Allah will not look at them. And this hadith is muttafiqun alayh. طيب. So then, the general ruling, as it says here, it says يجوز إسباب من غير خيلاء للحاجة. According to the school of Imam Ahmed, they say that it's permissible for a person to drag their garment as long as if it's a need to do so. If it's a need to do so, otherwise it's just hated. Any question? So the one that's not doing it out of arrogance is hated. If a person needs to do it for whatever reason, then it's not hated. If a person does it out of arrogance, then it is what? Haram. Is that clear? Again, if a person does it out of arrogance, then it is what? Haram. If a person does it, and the person does it not out of arrogance, then it is what? Makruh, hated. And if a person has a need to do it for whatever reason, then it is what? Mubah. Is that clear? طيب. Lil haja, meaning yes. I'm sorry? Allahu Alam. That's a good question. What's the example of need? I can't think of one. Maybe his job says you got to wear pants a certain length, for example. That's a haja, not a darura fi farq. There's a difference between haja and darura. Darura means your life is dependent on it. Haja means it's not as serious as darura. It's something that, yeah, you need to get it done, but if you don't do it, your life is not at stake, right? So they made this issue haja. So let's say, for example, you have a uniform in your job, and they say, hey, your uniform, it can't be above your ankles. It has to be down here. Or maybe you work in whatever type of field you work in, a uniform, it has to look a certain way, or otherwise you'll be fired. In this case, it's a haja. Labats. You know you're doing it because, and this is fiqh of the deen, right? Islam is not hard. Once you learn Islam a little bit, it's not hard. Islam is not put in place to make your life difficult, right? Like, yes, you want to?
No, I would say I will. So
okay.
Yeah, they say you definitely can't have the pants up like that.
طيب. The next one is a tasweer. Photos, right? So photos. Well, let's talk about tasweer. And once we finish this part, we're going to conclude the class for the night, inshallah, because it's a lot. The next one is photos. When they say tasweer, what's the ruling of tasweer? What is tasweer? We spoke about this the other day. This is ironic that is in the class tonight, right? What is tasweer? The brother's not here. What is tasweer? What does that mean? Nobody knows. Pictures, right? The picture maker is what? Curse. So 20 years ago, nobody had photos on the internet. Nobody what? Because everybody said it was haram, right? What happened? It's not haram anymore? No, don't. No. Oh, everybody know the rulings now. No. Oh, so wait. Time out. Before, it was haram to have pictures anywhere. Now all of a sudden, like, dang, man, what? We don't care no more? Is it loopholes? They found a couple loopholes. What's the ruling now? What's the rule on taking pictures? So wait, first, let's look at this book here, right? This book was written when? The hadith about tasweer, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed the musawwir, right? The one who makes pictures. Images, right? Right. Was he talking about images from the camera? Real quick. When you say images from the camera, were there cameras back then? So they couldn't have been talking about cameras from your phone or from your camera like that. What were they talking about? And the reason why I say that is because the term taswir is not a new term. It's a what? It's an old term. So when you use terms that are old terms, you have to know what they meant by it when they said it. Meaning, how did the Prophet ﷺ understand it? How did the Sahaba understand it? How did the students of the Sahaba understand it, etc.? Is that clear? Even though the word is the same word, but what did they understand by it? To them, taswir was rasam, right? Taking a pen or a pencil or whatever and drawing a person's picture or sculpting it, right? Drawing a person's picture or sculpting it, right? And the argument is this. And some of the scholars differ on this, right? The argument is this. If I show you a picture of someone, are you going to tell me that it looks like the person or it is that person? What, a camera?
Oh, no.
I'm talking about a camera. If someone takes your picture, you're going to say, yeah, this looks like Ibrahim? That is Ibrahim. Right. If someone drew a picture of Ibrahim, are they going to say it looks like Ibrahim or it is Ibrahim? It looks like Ibrahim. If someone makes a statue of Ibrahim, okay, what's the difference? One is that a person is applying some skill set to it, right? The hadith is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to say, bring life to that which you have tried to create. When you hit a button and take a picture, what are you creating? Nothing. The ulama say habsa dhil, meaning you're gathering that which is present. It's just this technology, right? But if I take a pen and I'm like, damn, and I'm applying some real skills, so it's going to take like 40 minutes to draw your face. This here is going to be said to the one who made that, bring life to that which you created. Likewise with sculptures, right? So then, however, there are scholars that hold even taking pictures with a camera to be haram. It wouldn't be fair if I just say one position without mentioning the other, right? There are ulama that say that taking pictures with cameras are haram. And then there are ulama that say, la, it's not haram because of what I just said. That's the evidence that they use. They said when you look at a picture, you're not going to say this looks like somebody. You're going to say that is. If I bring you a picture of him, I'm going to say, do you know this guy? Do this look like something? No, that's him. That's him. All right? That's the argument. But having said that, yes.
I'm sorry. No, I was wondering, is a part of that ruling where they find it haram, even though the little show is not an actual picture? Could some of that be? Because I don't know why they say it's haram.
Why they say what's haram?
The actual taking of the picture, if it's not actual.
So they're saying it's haram because they the picture is called taswir, a surah. A surah is a picture, right? They use the same term. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam cursed the picture maker. You might say, all right, you take a picture. You consider a picture maker to the terms. Some ulama hold that position.
Based upon that.
Yeah, based upon that. Some scholars hold that position, yes.
So in other words, you're saying when it comes to your position or anyone's position, it's what they take or what scholars.
So when it comes to following positions, right? And this is where a lot of us, where we live, we fall into problems, right? The problem is, let's say I'm student Fulan. I say taking pictures altogether is haram based on this hadith, and anyone who opposes that fits into this category. So you leave the masjid here. I heard student such and such say this, and then you go to another masjid. They took a picture. They're on bid'ah now. They're committing innovations. This is where the problems come at. Instead of saying, damn, maybe they know something else. Maybe they follow a different position. But the problem is with us, sometimes people think that your position is the position. And you have to be really careful with that. Islam is not black and white, right? It's not black and white. Now, don't use that. And so some people use, Islam's not black and white. So let me just do something haram and then look for a reason for doing it later, right? That's not what you do, all right? But when it comes to issues like this is the argument that many of the scholars, like for example, some people would have said being on camera and giving a class. This was haram 5 years ago. Huh? It was haram 5 years ago. Now, yes. See that? But see, money is necessary. You need money. So now you're making exceptions for things you need. All right? Yeah, but you didn't make it, though. You didn't make the picture. And plus, I don't know, people don't carry cash no more anyway. Maybe you, but most people don't. Huh? Yes. What was it?
No, about the art.
Oh, the art. Yeah, so the same thing. If a person draws pictures, this is haram. To draw pictures of people, right? To draw pictures of people is haram. This is taswir. There's no difference of opinion on that. You're not going to find any Muslim, the ones that say taking pictures are haram with a camera and the ones that say it's okay, both of them will come together and agree that the sculpting of the picture is haram. There's no difference of opinion on that. The difference of opinion now is with the cameras, with the video cameras, because this is what would be considered fiqh nawazil or a nazila. Fiqh nawazil are fiqh issues that was not present during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So when they come up, scholars look at it and they all have to figure out what's the ruling on it. Some scholars say this, some scholars say that. The problem with us is that we shouldn't make those issues reasons why we don't speak to one another, why we don't pray janazah over our brothers or sisters because they held a different position in fiqh than you. Huh? They're still our brothers and sisters in Al-Islam and they're still their rights. Right. Yes.
I was reading where, in reference to the camera and then the video, and it was Sheikh Fawzan or Sheikh Demin was one of the two. It was explaining, Sheikh Fawzan Hafidullah Ta'ala, was explaining that the actual picture, falls under when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to question you about putting a soul in that which He created.
Sheikh Fawzan said that. I remember, and I think that's his position. I remember one day, we were in Mecca. Sheikh Salah Fawzan was teaching a class. It was a bunch of students there. And there was a guy who walked behind and pulled out his phone and started taking pictures, and the Sheikh screamed at him. Oh, yeah? I was there.
It's on YouTube.
Maybe it's a different. No, I'm not. Listen. Let me say I'm not gonna say I was there then, but I know it happened on multiple occasions with him being there. He did that a lot. So I can't say I was there, but I haven't seen that. I don't want to put myself. I might not have been there. Yes. No, I'm just saying. Yes.
Even with the difference of opinions with that, right? See, a lot is some of the rulings, and this is just a question from a leader. Is some of the rulings inspired by we know they're using the Quran and Sunnah to come to a verdict, but some of the things in that land is upon
what land? What land?
Like the land of the Muslim.
Any Muslim land or any place.
I'm saying like the customs.
Right.
Say for instance, the ship of the man, 85, 86 years old. At his time, they didn't have no cameras. There's no cameras growing up at his time.
Right.
They got kids now 15, 16 years old. They got cameras. The Quran and Sunnah is nothing, never changed. But it's the verdict. It's based upon their customs too. Like sometimes it'd be like from the.
Sure. I understand what you're saying. The verdicts generally are based on what you know, what you expect. For example, we have Quran, Sunnah, understanding of the Salaf. You have ulama in a particular place. They're giving rulings based on what they see around them and how they understand the text, right? Then life takes over, meaning things change. I'll give an example. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, do you know where he's from? What was he from? Iraq. Right. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he gave verdicts in Iraq, fatwa, right? Then he went from Iraq to Misr, to Egypt. When he got to Egypt, he changed a lot of his fatwa when he got to Egypt. It's the same Quran, same Sunnah, same understanding of the Salaf. Lacking why, when he went to Egypt, the rulings changed? Because the condition of the people changed. But the text is still the same. So a person may say that doesn't make sense. Well, Islam gives us rules and regulations. Dawabit. Dawabit are boundaries. Well, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. Islam gives us boundaries and how we. So, for example, the boundary may be from here to here, and anything in between based on the text and how you look at it. So a person may rule, okay, based on this situation, it fits here with that Dalil going this way. It's still within the boundaries. When he went to Egypt, it's like that's not going to work for the people here. So I'll give you an example. Saudi Arabia, right? Up until a few years ago, women couldn't drive cars. Was it haram? La. Even some of the ulama will say, we're not saying it's haram for the women to drive cars, but the law made it impermissible for the women to drive cars because of another fitna that they had in their society. So much so that when I was living here in the U.S., there was a sister here 20 years ago that said the ulama say it's haram to drive, so she refused to drive cars. Here in the U.S., not understanding that was for their society. Whereas here in America, you tell a woman, she like, doesn't make sense. She grew up driving cars. It's a different dynamic, a whole different society. For that reason, this is why many of the ulama, when you go study Islam, many, especially being from where we come from, many of the scholars say that we should study fiqh. You need to study fiqh. Why do you need to study fiqh? Because when you go back to your country, you have your own set of issues you're dealing with. This is why when you study Islam, the ulama, they don't want you calling Saudi Arabia for every single issue that goes on in America. What does that mean? Oh, that means you don't want people to take from the ulama. No, that's not what that means. What that means is if you studied Islam, you should have had enough tools to go back and look at your issues. Now, here, it doesn't mean you don't need the scholars, right? But you have tools now. And I don't just mean the Arabic language. I mean tools to look at issues, extract the issues, and come up with a verdict yourself. But the verdict that you come up with, you may not know the real answer. So you contact the people you studied under. When you contact them, you present an issue. This is the case. This is what happened. This is what I believe is correct. This is the evidence why I'm saying what I'm saying. And this is why I say what I say. They're going to look at it and say, that's interesting. And they might ask you more about that issue. And they may say, that's a nice move. That's a nice call on you. Or no, you got to look at it this way. And then even if they give you an alternate way of looking at it, you still may argue it because you know other conditions here that they don't know. This is what a student of knowledge is supposed to do. Is that clear? When we go overseas to study Islam and come back, this is the expectation. When the scholars, you go back to your country, this is the expectation. Not, Sheikh, I want to know, they just built the masjid on 40th and Lancaster. Can I go pray there? What? Can you pray there? You understand what I'm saying? You studied Islam, then you figure it out. You understand? So I say all that to say, with these issues, a lot of times because we struggle with issues like this, a lot of times it causes separation. All right. But your job, meaning as a student of knowledge, your job is to know where you're at, know the condition of your people. Whoever listens to our class online, sometimes you may not understand our language because our audience is Philadelphia and the surrounding area. We all understand the same language. If I were to go to California, I might have to change the way I speak. I may have to learn. You want to talk about different customs? We have different customs even here in the U.S. There's certain things that there's certain ways we can move here in Philly that if I went to Arkansas, I can't move that way. If I go to Texas, I may not be able to move this way. If I go to college, it's different. We have students of knowledge all over the U.S. A student from Arkansas know how to deliver whatever he needs to deliver to his constituents there. A student in New York, he knows how to deliver to his people there. Philadelphia, so on and so forth. You can't expect people to come from a certain place, and it's the same Quran, the same Sunnah, and the same what? Understanding of the Salaf. Right? So, Allahu Alam. I don't even know how we even got on that, man. Any other questions, brothers? Huh? Yes.
Got it from being nude. That's how we got here.
What happened?
From being nude, that's how we got here.
Being nude?
Yeah.
Who's nude? Oh. All right.
Being though you on the topic, you started off with the topic of transparency when it comes to clothing and being able to see the skin and the flesh and stuff like that. One of the major issues right now with our sisters is the fishnet, see your foot stockings.
So the question now is the foot odor or is it not odor?
For the female now.
It is?
It's odor.
Okay. Some of the ulama say that the feet is not odor.
Yeah, nah.
So what I'm saying, I'm not saying that that's my position. What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, if you're going to tackle the issue, you got to tackle it, right? You got to come up with what position you believe to be correct. You might believe that a woman, like you might take this position, kuluha odor, all of the women's odor except for her hands and her face, so that her feet should be covered. Like she might be, I think it was a position of Imam Malik that say that the woman's feet are not odor. Now what? Now you're going to say that the sisters that don't cover the audio on bid'ah, they not on the sunnah over there because they feet exposed? Not. It's difficult, right? So this is what I mean. We got to be cautious. Just because a Muslim, I'll give you an example. Here in this city, Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala, his position on a lot of issues that was it. Meaning, you a new shahada, you take Sheikh Al-Albani's Sifatul Salat to Nabi, and if you went against that book, you're an innovator. Who remembers that? Yeah. If you came up from Rukur and you put your hand on your chest, a'udhu billah, your hands had to be on the side. If your hands was on your chest, he's an innovator. Right? These issues separated and divided the Muslims. Fiqh issues. Issues where the Salaf differed. Right? So having said that, you just got to be careful. The issue of the women and the fish, I don't want to get in that.
So with that is all right. So that would basically boil. I mean, a lot of for our sisters with knowing that my positions and all. But maybe that needs a separate whole lecture talking about that. Yes.
That sounds like what you were just saying. It sounded like that was an issue with the toilet 20 years, 15 years ago.
I wasn't no student 20 years ago. No, hear me out. No. Hear me out. What year is this? 22? 22. 20 years ago, I wasn't no student. But it was the issue that affected the community.
20 years later,
It's something different now. The same little stuff, but it's something different now. It wasn't the same. Now everybody, all right, we learned that part. Now we moved on to something else. Right? We got other issues. 20 years ago, I remember this one. I said, man, I got to study Islam. 20 years ago, we were in the masjid for Fajr in Maryland. A brother came in the masjid, right? And he prayed Fajr with us, and he had his hands down to the side. So after the Salat, I think he came in late. The brother said, yeah, I'm going to take it to him. It's bid'ah, right? So the brother, he walked, I remember the brother. He walked up to him after Salat al-Fajr. He says, Akhi, this is against the sunnah of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. So the brother said, wait, I'll be right back. He went out to his car, and he grabbed a book. He came back, and it was all Arabic. Opened it up like, you see where it says this right here? He started reading. He said, do you read Arabic? Bro was like, no. I'm like, dang. The brother opened up an Arabic book and started reading like the different positions of the sky. I'm like, dang, this boy heavy. I said, let me back up. I was just an innocent young kid bystander. I'm just looking like, dang, that's deep. But what I realized is that if you're going to open your mouth, you need to know what you're talking about. I learned that from that point. I saw somebody get embarrassed. He was embarrassed. He said, it doesn't matter what the Arabic. He said, what do you mean it doesn't matter what the Arabic says? You don't read this? Look at this. Now I couldn't read Arabic. So I was like, damn, it must be saying something. I don't know what it's saying. But whatever it says, he's defending his position, right? This is why when you see stuff like that, it's like that. I need to really be quiet and focus on myself. Let me get myself right.
I wish the whole Philly was listening to that.
Nah, I'm in line.
Because that's our issue. 95% of us don't know Arabic, and we
There's-
run off of what we do.
There's
Hey.
some statements from Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, regarding it may be a position that you know that someone maybe in another area don't know. So in that case, that person in that locality, he can't really consider that person upon misguidance. And
Well, that's a whole listen. Considering people, and this is another problem. Why is it that with us, you can go to any other community, right? If we were to go to any community in this city or outside of the city, they're never talking about who's the people in misguidance, and but it's always us, as if we were given like carte blanche, like we're automatically going to Jannah and we can look at everybody else and all their faults. Who told you that? But what I'm saying is, but you know your reality. You know you're not built like that Islamically. You know that. What makes you think that we can just sit back and be like, yeah, man, they not on it. We on it. Like what that does is it gives you a false sense of security with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we didn't earn. Some of us that believe this don't even know how to pray properly. But because we ascribe ourselves and say, yeah, we on the sunnah, then that's all you need to do. That's not, some of us can't even pray. Some of the men, you go home in your house and you can't even recite Al-Fatiha, cuz like, what's up? Why? Because we don't focus on the little things. We try to focus on the big. And there's a brother, rahimahullah, one of our brothers that studied with us. He passed away last week. Corey Flippin Salim. When he passed away, there was said that he said, the people focus on the small things, like learning how to pray, like learning your tashahhud in the salat, like making dhikr after the salat, like focusing on your own soul, like putting yourself in position so that when you die, it's like, inshallah, I might be from the people of Jannah, like inshallah, you know what I mean? Let's focus on those things. The problem is we live in a society where, because we're so arrogant as a people, that we look down on other Muslims that may have been Muslim. They may have generational Muslims in their whole family, and you're the only person in your family that have Islam. Listen to this. We have people in our community, we look down on other people in other communities, but our kids is in the street selling drugs though. Their kids is in the masjid leading the salat. Their kids in the masjid doing whatever what Muslims supposed to do, but your kids is out harming people, terrorizing the whole city. Your kids terrorize the whole city, but you're sitting there looking down on every other Muslim. But your children, Dad, isn't that your son? Yeah, man, make dua for him. But you sit here talking about everybody else. But your son shout out. Your daughter shout out. But you said you have the nerve to look down on every other Muslim, but your own backyard is messed up. But we looking down on people that got generations of Muslims. We looking down on people, everybody in their family made Hajj. Everybody. Right? Alhamdulillah. I'm just saying everybody, like that's something that they respect and honor. Their kids finished the book of Allah. You can't even recite Al-Fatiha. The person you talking about, kids finish the Quran, but you don't even know how to recite Al-Fatiha. This is a problem that we have, right? We look down on everybody else. We think that and this is a problem. It's a false sense of security. We can look down on other Muslims and think that because I claim to be on the Sunnah, that I'm saved. I'm on the Sunnah, alhamdulillah. That's what I'm saying. We're on the Sunnah. What that means is I don't really got to study like that. As long as I come pray with these brothers and they acknowledge me and I'm acknowledged to be on the Sunnah and my family's acknowledged, alhamdulillah, we good. This is a problem. Islam's not supposed to be that way. Everybody's supposed to be fear. Listen, Some of the companions were afraid of hypocrisy. We're talking about people that walked with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and they were afraid of hypocrisy. Yeah, we walk around like we all that, and our kids is messed up. Our children are messed up. Our daughters are messed up. Our sons are messed up. But yet we could talk about the brothers at this masjid and that masjid. Oh, they ain't on it, akhi. They not following the sunnah. You ever hear somebody say such and such is not following the sunnah? You ever heard that before? All right. Next time you hear somebody say somebody's not following the sunnah, right? Ask them which one. Say which sunnah they not following. Think about that. Which sunnah? There's a lot of sunnah. Which one? All of them? That's hard to find a Muslim not following some aspects of the sunnah. I mean, they're not on the sunnah. Which sunnah you talking about? Is there a select group of sunnah that you know that nobody else knows? Like, what is it? The whole point is, brothers, is that we got to be careful, man. We got to be careful. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to be praying over each other. And listen, because of these bickering and beefs that we have between the Muslims, right? If a brother dies, we're not even praying over him because somebody else, they're hostile. Like, come on. Like, this is it, man. When you die, that's it. You're not getting another opportunity to come back. That's it. It's over. It's over. Are the beefs that serious? No. It's not. If we're sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should be able to fix whatever problems that we have. And if not, then you got to take it to the grave. But who's really trying to take something like that to the grave? Beefs you have with Muslims that's not even that deep. It's not that deep. When you sitting there and you bury somebody and you got to put the little wood plank in they dirt and you got to be the one to do it, it's going to make you think. You know, and the little thing you put down on there, when everybody walking away and the person in the grave and you know that person, like that was your man, y'all was cool. That's messed up. Like now it's like, dang, we got to figure this out. So anyway, I'm gonna close the class out with this. Any questions outside of that? طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I was gonna say, I need a lot of brothers I know, you know, over the years, in the last 15 years, they just regurgitate.
I mean, that's most people though.
And they don't really have no dalil besides like what you said in the past about Folan